Hello, hello, hello. It is Monday. It's a beautiful Monday here in Toronto. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're coming in from. If you're live and on the replay, be sure to let me know. Are you live? Are you on the replay? Would love to know a little bit about it. And of course, we start the evening with a little bit of jazz, a little bit of calabash. And Calabash is based here in Toronto, but they're a Caribbean jazz group and led by Anthony Pierre. And they have, oh my God, the steel band as the main instrument. And can you tell I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, the land of steel band and calypso. Ooh. So tonight, you know, hopefully you're inspired because I'm already inspired by my guest. And she came on the show last year, and I just had to have her back. Last time we talked about something else. Tonight we're talking about, Lyme disease. It's a different season. So, especially as we get into the summer months where people are beginning to walk. It's spring. We've been cooped up inside. We need to get a little bit of, you know, insight, some education. So before we get started, get comfy, get a nice drink. Now, today is a little cool on my end. I don't know about you. So a little throw is not too bad. And, get a nice fragrance, a nice little candle, grab your notebook because those wisdom keys are going to be dropped. And please share with your friends, with your family. Let people know that Victory Speaks is out here. We're having an inspired conversation tonight. And it's a show where iron sharpens iron, and that's you and me sharpening each other. And on this show, you will meet the iron sharpeners in my life, those I've met now, those I've met along the way, those I've met a long time ago. And I'm your host, Nicole Waldron, your voice of victory and your mental fitness coach. And I'm on a mission to inspire you to live a victorious lifestyle. I really believe we all need to be inspired as we mind our mind. Our mind is the battlefield. Our mind is key. Our brain is our mind, and our mind is our brain. And we need to create victorious perspectives while we cultivate the lives that we want to live. Along the journey, we have to just show some ourselves. Sometimes you got to cheer for ourselves. And tonight I'm cheering you on. I hope you had a good day. And as I cheer my own self on, because you got to remember to give yourself some hoorah, some hooray, because sometimes there ain't nobody there to do it for you. And as we go through the journey and as we want to seek to live a victorious life, we got to just be humble. We got to be patient. And as we shift our perspectives, we will really have the victorious mindset. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's something I wish, I learned earlier on in life. And so as I start this journey with you tonight, I want you to think about who inspired you today. Let me know why they inspired you, how they inspired you. And as you go along the way, we're going to have some intentional conversations. And this young woman I met, can't believe it was in 2020 we started talking, and now she's like a sister. She's a sister friend, and she's all in the way to the United States. I'm here based in Toronto, Canada, for those of you who are watching for the first time. And she continues to inspire me. She's a native New Yorker and currently resides in Washington, D.C., two places I love and haven't been to for a while. Looking forward to going to visit there when this pandemic is over. She's a National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach through the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching and is the owner of Divine Wryte Wellness, which is her health and wellness coaching practice. Serena Wills is also a published author, a published coach, and poet. She now has 3 published poetry books: The Awakening, Pieces of Life Volumes 2, released in 2019, Crying Tears of Teal, released in the fall of 2017, and her first poetry book titled Reconstruction, Pieces of Life, Volume 1, which was released in 2014. She has also been published in numerous anthologies and has written health and wellness articles for various publications and blogs. She holds a BA in Policy Studies from Syracuse University, an MPA from Virginia Tech, and a Master of Arts in Health and Wellness Coaching from the Maryland University of Integrative Health. Serena is a mother of a beautiful son. He is so awesome, and is an advocate also for ovarian cancer, GYN cancers, and Lyme disease, which we're going to be talking about tonight, and is a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. I don't know. We don't have any sororities here in Canada. Not that I know of, anyways. So, folks, let's give a warm welcome. Give me your hearts, you know, give me your love handles. We got to bring Serena up to the stage. And let me see. Why am. Oh, there we go. All right. I got Serena. I was like, where did she go? Where did she go? Where did she
I'm
go?
here.
How you doing,
I am
hon?
here. I am good. I'm good. How are you? I'm blessed.
I am good. I am good. It's a beautiful day today. I don't know if I told you last week we had snow on Friday.
I saw the video and I said, this has to be from the winter or a couple of months ago. And you said, no, this is
No,
today. This is happening
today.
right now. Oh
And the
my
flakes kept
gosh.
getting bigger and bigger. And then later on in the afternoon, it was spring again. It was so amazing.
Yeah,
So
just poof, goes away.
goes away. It reminds me of like life, that how we have to reset, have to be prepared for the unexpected, like Girl Scouts, because you never know
Yes.
what's gonna happen. And then
It's
and
like
then
Girl
okay, I'm
Scout.
like, okay, nature, we're gonna reset today. I started off cold, and now today we're kind of getting back on the warmer side over here. How's it over there in these?
So it must be a cold front that came through because I'm telling you, last Wednesday, Thursday was 80s, low 90s, and they literally said by Friday it was going to be like a 30 to 40-degree shift. I didn't believe the weather
Right,
until I went outside Saturday to throw trash out. I wore like a little t-shirt and I looked at the phone, it said 52 degrees with real feel 40 something. And that was in the
right.
daytime. And then at
Wow.
night it dropped. And I said, what happened to my 95 degrees that just was here on Wednesday? And then they said today was in the 70s, and by the end of the week, it'll be like 80s, almost 90 again. So it's just crazy.
It's
It's just
interesting. It's
crazy.
interesting. Listen, we
Yeah.
gotta adjust. So how are
Yeah.
things now with the pandemic? How did the pandemic affect you and your family over there in the United States of America?
First of all, okay, I'm going to try to not have an attitude when I say this. So, okay, so in the States, it's Memorial Day weekend. So today's
Right.
a holiday. And I know our governor, I live in the state of Virginia, decided, oh, instead of opening the state mid-June, I'm going to open it up Memorial Day weekend.
Ooh,
So stores had to, and it's night. The one thing I really appreciate about the stores I shop at is, despite what the governor's saying, they're still mandating masks. They still are,
mhm.
in protocol. But
Right.
it's just open season now. I mean, it just gave people permission to walk outside, be in stores without masks on. Certain areas where you have to wear a mask, of course, like the hospital,
Yeah.
doctors. But they did say that stores have permission to say, look, you can't come in here without a mask on. But without that backing from your state, people can really, and it got this way last year. People were fighting these stores, and cashiers and essential workers. They're going through enough as it is. They don't need to fight you because you don't want to wear your mask, and now you claim you're vaccinated. You
Yeah.
claim it,
Yeah.
but no one's
You
going to
claim it.
ask you. Claim it, but people, they're not going to be a ID check at the door. And then they have these fake vaccination cards I've heard about that are now on the rise, where people are just making the cards up and acting like they're vaccinated. So it's been very interesting. Luckily, it's just me and my son that live together, so it's really easy to control where we physically live in our apartment. But when we go
Right.
outside, we're still wearing our mask. We're still doing everything we're supposed to do. We have family in New York, and their governor, who I respect, is really, still taking things a bit
Yeah.
slowly. But yeah, like Florida, there was a concert last night I was telling you about, Nicole, and the club was packed from the stage to the wall, and no one had on a mask except for the one guy who was working backstage. One guy. I was like, there he goes. He's like, you're not gonna catch me out there. But it was out there in Miami, and no one had on a mask. But Florida has been open, unfortunately. So it's still there's a fear factor here for people like, I'm not vaccinated. My
Right.
son can't be vaccinated. There's
Because
nothing
he's
for
too
kids
young.
under 12. Yeah.
Right.
So we're not even thinking about our children or those who have to wait to get vaccinated, or, some people just aren't going to get it. That's their prerogative. But
Yeah.
it's too soon. Like, we should have done this a little slower and in slower
Yeah.
stages, but it's just too soon.
And especially when you have compromised immune systems, you have the elderly, you have the young. It
Oh, yep.
really, it leaves you in a predicament. And then when everybody, the ones who misbehave, for those of us that are behaving,
Yes.
we're paying the price. It's like that Peter paying for Paul thing, which it irks me, it annoys me, and it angers me,
Hmm.
because there's so much, we would be doing so much better if
Yes.
everybody would just be obedient for a little while.
Just for
Um,
a little while longer. Yeah, because we're not even at the percentage yet as a country that they wanted to
right.
reach, which is called herd immunity. We're
Yeah.
not even there yet. And that's where it's like, okay, enough people have the vaccine, documented. They have the vaccine, and it's okay to, like, just, let everything be
Yeah.
open. But we're not even there yet. So I don't know. Just too much of a rush.
It is. And I mean, we have to, I understand people are impatient, but to me, this is where you have to, like, oh my God, when we look at other countries that are suffering, that wish they could even have the vaccine, don't have the vaccine. And then people
Yes.
act, some people might be offended by the word, but it's entitled. They act entitled, and that's, I need it.
Yeah.
But, you're making it worse for everybody else when you don't take responsibility. And the kids are going to suffer longer.
Yeah.
Our seniors are going to suffer long because they're going to be more in isolation. And then the
Yeah.
mental health, let's not even start on the mental health piece, because I keep thinking about um, the first responders and the doctors and the nurses that have to tell people that their loved ones died so often over
I
time and
know.
over time, that vicarious trauma just
Yeah.
happening to repeat that, and families having to have so many funerals. I'm attending a lot of funerals online, and
Oh.
10 people
Mm.
every weekend. Like this weekend, I had two this weekend. I had two the weekend before, and I'm
Oh
watching
my
my
God.
friends and family, you know, having only 10 people,
Yeah.
and then some
Yeah.
loved ones not being able to come in. It's such a challenge.
Yeah.
But as you said, we will get through it. We will rise again,
We
and
will. We will rise. And when we, laid my grandmother to rest in November, it was just 13 of us. And you had to tell the funeral home in advance. You had to give them a
right,
list in advance, who's coming. And after a certain time period, that's it. You couldn't add anybody to the list because that's how they can COVID trace.
right,
And I don't blame them. But I mean, it was just that's how she wanted to go. A nice private ceremony. But there are some
mm,
places where they want more people to attend, but they just can't. And like you
can.
said, they're doing these Zoom funerals now, and you're on Zoom, saying goodbye to your loved one. It's so hard. It's very hard.
So, we're going to let's get into Lyme disease, because I think, when I think about COVID and I think about those who have long-term effects from Lyme disease, let's start talking about what is Lyme disease, because not many people know what even Lyme disease is. And it can happen
Yeah,
no matter where you are. Once you
yeah.
have wooded areas, grassy areas. So let's talk about Lyme disease as we get
Okay.
more into, we'll talk about the pandemic, because the pandemic is affecting everybody with Lyme disease as well.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh. Yes.
yes.
And Lyme disease right now is currently in 80 countries globally.
Um,
So and I know Canada has very low numbers.
mhm.
We'll talk
But it's
about
building.
numbers later. It's
But it's
building,
building.
and then the problem is Lyme disease is the great imitator. So people may not
Mm,
know they have Lyme, but because they're misdiagnosed because it looks like something else. And
yeah.
that's the one thing happening here everywhere, actually in the United States and globally, is that there's some symptoms of Lyme that mimic COVID. So Lyme disease, just to back it all the way up for people who never heard of it or heard of it and never really knew what it was, Lyme disease is actually caused by a bacteria called Borrelia. And the Borrelia bacteria is found in ticks. So the little tiny bugs that they're on deer and dogs, they're in the woods and trees and grass. They are, some of them, not all ticks, but a good percentage carry the Borrelia bacteria. And it was actually first discovered here in the United States. And the reason why it's called Lyme, Lyme, is because it was found, the first cases were found in Lyme, Connecticut. So Lyme is actually an actual town. I don't know if it's a city, but it's an actual town
Right.
in Connecticut in the United States. And that was back in the latter 60s, early 70s were the first Lyme cases. And then from there, it has just exploded. So literally a tiny tick, and I mean, they some of them are microscopic. Some ticks you can't even see with the naked eye, which makes it even worse. But most ticks you can see with the eye, and about 70% of ticks that bite people leave this
Right.
bullseye rash on them. So that's about
Okay.
70% of the people. Now, unfortunately, 30%, and I fell in the 30% category. Of course I did. When I got bitten by a tick, didn't know I got bitten by a tick. It was September 2012 on a nature walk. And I don't usually take nature walks. I used to be a marathon runner. I used to run marathons and train for marathons. I was training for my 6th marathon. And I usually would run or walk on paved trails
Right.
where the bushes and trees were away
All
from
the
me,
way
where
back.
I can observe them, but they weren't going to brush up against my arms or my
Right.
skin or anything. So I was at a new job, and my colleague said, "Hey, we're taking a nature walk. You should come with us." And I said, it's a good day because I was going to go out for a training run anyway. So I'll just utilize the walk as part of my training. And when we got to the island, it's called the Theodore Roosevelt Island. It's off of Washington, D.C. It's part of Washington, D.C. It's walking distance from my old job. And they have 2 ways you can go. You can go the paved way, which is what I wanted to do.
Right.
And then there's the nature trail way, where you see tons and
Right.
tons of bushes, trees, just like the bugs are just welcoming you. Like, just come into our home. Just come and see us. You're
Right.
here. So they said, no, there's a beautiful path back here, and you should go with us, Serena. I was like, and something in my gut, and this is for anyone out there, when your intuition, when your gut is talking to you, that's your intuition. That is God saying, I'm telling you, don't go this way.
Pay
I went against
attention.
my intuition. I didn't want to, be the outsider. And I went with them. And out of 10 people, I was the only one bitten. And I didn't know I had the bite because it was just a typical little bug on my right arm. I remember the exact bush I rubbed against because I was freaked out that I rubbed against anything. And it was a bug that I could not get off of my right arm. And it took a while to pull it off. And I felt fine for a
Right.
few days, but I didn't have the bullseye rash. And the bullseye rash literally looks like if you're playing the game of darts, or here in the United States, the store Target, it looks like that. And I didn't have that. So if I had something looking like that, I would have known, oh, this doesn't look right. Let me go to the doctor. But it was maybe several days later, maybe about 10 days later, I started to develop a cough that just was what you called an unproductive cough. So you're coughing, but nothing's coming up, and you feel like rattling inside your
Right.
body, but nothing's coming up. But at the same time, it was September here. So we're going into October, and I said, well, the season is changing. I might just have a little cold. So I just
Right.
rubbed
Right.
it
Right.
off, just brushed it off like it's just a cold. I'll be okay. And just got some cold medicine. And then I went to African dance class that week and could barely get through half of my class. I was short of breath. And never in my life have I ran marathons. I would know if I was short of breath or asthmatic or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Never in my life. So I told my teacher, I have this little cold. Maybe it's just a cold. I'm just going to sit this class out. That was my last class I ever took until last spring 2020. From
Wow,
September
Serena.
2012 to April 2020. And that's only because they started offering virtual classes in the pandemic. I said, let me just see how my body is doing, because I'll tell you about the symptoms. One of my symptoms is inner ear disturbance and shortness of breath still. So it's hard to dance, an African dance, you're moving, you're bobbing your head, you're turning, and you need your breath, but you also need your balance. And your inner ear really controls a lot of your vestibular system. It really controls your balance. So from there came all the misdiagnoses. So the first doctor I went to was just my general doctor, and they said, oh, it just might be a common cold. I said, common colds don't cause shortness of breath,
Right.
or, a deep cough. And the other sign was I went for a training run. And I mean, I'm telling you, 6 miles to me back then was nothing. I couldn't even get past 2 miles. I was completely short of breath. And now I had my son in the running stroller with me. So here I am on the path, feeling like I'm about to pass out because I'm short of breath. Turned around and just slowly walked back to my car. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like 6 miles was nothing to me. Now I'm out here I wasn't even at the 2 mile marker. It might have been like a mile and a half.
Right.
I couldn't even get past it. So for the doctor, and that's what doctors do, because it's, like I said, it's the great imitator, the great mimicker, as they call it. So it's sort of from, you have a cold. Then my one friend said, you should see my allergist, my allergist doctor. And that doctor said, you might have asthma. I said, I think I would know if I have asthma. I've ran five marathons,
5 marathons.
Okay, 26.2 miles each time. And then 2 of them were half marathons, 13.1 miles. And I would do 5 and 10Ks. In between them, I had just did a 5K that spring. And it was my best time ever. I said, I think I would know if I have asthma by now. So then they gave me inhalers. Never in my life have I had inhalers. And then it went to, then the symptoms started rolling in. So I started having sharp pains in my ribs. My legs grew
How many weeks now is this?
Now we're like at maybe week number 3. And there were like more symptoms rolling in. And I said, okay, what's up with the sharp pain in my ribs? And so the next doctor said, you might have pneumonia. Because sometimes if you have pneumonia in that area of your body, you will feel some sort of pain. So then they do, of course, the chest x-ray and the lungs and everything. Everything is crystal clear. Everything. So I was like, well, I don't have pneumonia, but I still have these sharp pains going through my ribs. It feels like there's somebody like shooting bullets inside my body. And then it was the leg weakness. And then it was the burning underneath my feet. It felt like my feet were on fire. And it was just this roller coaster of symptoms. It was, and then the one major one that really was bothersome was in November, where the left side of my body felt weak. And I couldn't even hold stuff. I couldn't hold my son because he was 1 at that time. Jordan was really small. And you can actually see at that time a physical difference in my face. So now they're thinking, oh, she had a stroke. So it was just all these, but I said, okay, but strokes, I was like, okay, if I had a stroke, I need to get an MRI, And I went, well, long story short, I went through 10 misdiagnoses by the time it was all over. 10. Between
10.
September, 10. And I might be missing a couple, but the ones I can remember are 10. That was between late September, well, actually October 1. That was my first doctor's appointment ever, until early December. And then that Thanksgiving week of 2012 is when a good friend of mine on Facebook said, I'm seeing all these crazy posts you're posting. I hate that this is happening to you. You should see my doctor. She's an integrative health doctor. I think she can really help you.
Integrative health doctor. We got to talk about that soon. Go ahead.
Yes. So I went to her. I called her. It was a Tuesday. It was literally 2 days before Thanksgiving here in the States. And I told her who referred me, and I told her about all my symptoms. And now I was home from work. I couldn't even work anymore. I was home from work. And this is a new job, mind you. So I have no vacation leave,
nothing,
no pay. I was still on probation. So I couldn't utilize sick leave. So I'm home without pay. And I didn't know that was going to turn into a month. So that was the second week of me being out of work. It was about maybe 3 more weeks I was home. And she said, I'm going to fit you into the schedule today. come and see me. And I saw her that afternoon. It was supposed to only be a 1 hour visit, but the person after me canceled. I stayed in her clinic, in her practice. My appointment was at 3 o'clock. I didn't leave until 7 o'clock at night.
What?
She spent 4 hours with me and took, I
Serena.
mean, and she's old school. She's handwriting notes
Yeah, yeah.
and she's giving me supplements. Now was the first night I had my first IV treatment. She said, whatever you're going through, vitamin IV infusion won't hurt. It'll boost your system, but whatever you're going through has systemically really like just destroyed. It's destroying your immune system. And we have to get to the bottom of this. So I walked away. I had supplements. I had an IV treatment. Still went to New York that week for Thanksgiving, and to see my grandmother cry. I mean, she said, I don't even understand what I'm seeing right now because I had lost also weight. So I'm
Hmm.
already slim as it is,
You're
but now
tiny.
I'm small. So I'm now losing weight, and by the end
Yeah.
of it all, I had lost 30 pounds because of Lyme disease. 30
Wow.
pounds. I went from 170 to 140 like overnight. It was like I just saw my clothes were falling off of me. My face was drawn in.
That's a lot of weight to lose, Serena.
To lose like it was just like pound like every week I would weigh myself and I'm like this doesn't make sense. And I would tell her about my left leg and how it felt weak and but the bottom of my soles were burning and I
Mm.
would put my foot up on the couch and my grandmother would literally massage my leg for me. And she was praying for me as she's massaging my leg. And we still didn't know. We still didn't know what it was. Now, by now, I had other misdiagnoses: ALS, lupus. Um, the very last diagnosis I had was multiple sclerosis. That was the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, you know what?
How were you feeling?
Multiple sclerosis. Like, what
Like
is
I'm
happening to
just
me?
thinking of you going through all these different misdiagnoses. Like, how are you feeling mentally dealing with all of this?
Oh, I was so just to tell people about mental health because we are on Mental Health Awareness Month. Mentally, I was already destroyed on the inside before Lyme disease because this happened 2012. I had lost my mother in 2010. I had lost a sister in 2007. So I was still grieving. And
Grieving.
then
Yeah,
even
yeah.
though, thank God, I had my son, he's the light of my life. He's my black boy joy, as you know. In the middle of all this, I became a single mother because his father broke up with me.
Wow.
So it was a lot of grief.
Going on. Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of grief. I had lost a job, not the job I was at, but another job. So there was a lot of grief. So on top of all of that, I now had this like depression. It was just a thick cloud of depression
Mm.
raining down on me because I said I was running marathons. I was training for the inaugural Nike Women's Marathon that was taking place in Washington, D.C. I was going to be one of the first ones. And, I got this fabulous new job. And I was really, at the time, I was writing and getting ready to publish my book. And it just all came to
Crashing, crashing,
it just
crashing.
crashing, just a standstill, a stop. And there was another thing too that happened in September where I was not obedient. I didn't listen to God. And not saying, I mean, I don't believe He punished me, but I said, okay, I didn't listen to God twice in September, and this happened. Okay, so, and I was like, this is not coincidence.
Yeah.
This is not, when you don't follow that intuition, you don't follow
That
that
still small
gut,
voice that speaks to you.
that
Yep.
little small voice, it could be as quiet as a whisper.
Hmm.
Things are just destined to fall apart. So that last diagnosis was multiple sclerosis. And by that time, now I got that diagnosis only because my doctor, after the holidays, said, I want to send you for that MRI because the left side of your body is weak. And I do see a difference in your face.
Mm.
So let's just get you checked out. She was like, I don't think you had a stroke because you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me, but who knows? And when we got the MRI results back, they were abnormal. And that floored me. I almost fainted in her office. Literally, sweat was coming off my brow. And she called the nurse, like, please get her water. I think she's about to pass out. And she was like, Miss Wills, you don't have MS. And I said, well, what is the report saying? The radiologist said,
Yeah.
worrisome for this age group, diagnosis MS. And it said because I had 13 lesions in my brain and I had inflammation of the brain. That wasn't there before either because I had MRI before a few years back because I had a vertigo spell, but I know why I had the vertigo spell. So that was a new thing. But 13 lesions in your brain and inflammation of the brain. And that whole report would just make anybody cry. It just made you seem like you were dying. But she said, I have seen this in patients that have Lyme disease. I said, Lyme disease can do all this? A tick can do all this? And she said, what you have is also called central nervous system Lyme disease. Also, it's called neuro-Lyme. So the bacteria got into my spinal fluid, of course, and it got into my brain. So we actually had to do a spinal tap, which is not a fun thing to do. And sure enough, the bacteria showed up in my spinal tap. So I had a
Wow.
multitude of tests. I am truly,
You're a
I'm
walking miracle.
truly,
You are a miracle
I'm a
walking right
walking
now.
miracle. There were a couple of times I almost checked out of here, like making arrangements for my son, making sure my policies were in check, which anyone should make sure their policies are
Right.
in check. But there were times where there were some really dark moments between October and I'll say till about March. Um, January, we were trying to figure out what treatment. We're going to go the antibiotic route, which
Mhm.
was not it for me. My body crashed. It did not respond at all. Well, it responded, but it didn't respond in a good way. I had all the adverse reactions that say, if you have this reaction, go to the emergency room. I mean, when your left arm is going numb and everything like that, it's like, am I having a heart attack? And now it's off of an antibiotic I was on. So we completely said no to antibiotics, and I had to go the integrative health route. And I had to also build a medical team because now I have neurological problems. I need a neurologist. So my doctor found a neurologist for me, but he doesn't know Lyme. So he actually was man enough to say, I don't know Lyme, but I'm going to do all the basic tests that I can do for you. And in the meantime, I'm going to refer you to one of the top neurologists in the Washington, D.C. area that knows Lyme disease. He said, just make the appointment. He said, if they may tell you it's going to be months out, but I'll go behind you, call
Right.
him and get you an earlier appointment. And I respect doctors that say, I cannot treat you, but I know someone who can, and they pass the baton. They don't just try to use you
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a
As
lab rat.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, but yeah, I have a neurologist, I have a chiropractor, I had an acupuncturist, an herbalist, a nutritionist, an integrative health doctor, a naturopathic doctor, and I know I'm missing somebody in
And
there. I had
all this from a tick. All
one
this
tick
from a
bite.
tick. One little
One
tick.
one bite is all it took. Yep.
And that tick
Yeah.
is so small. I think people don't realize that tick is so small
Yeah.
that, I know they say that, once you go walking and depending on where you live, it's more prominent.
Hmm.
It's more prominent in certain parts of the United States. It's more
Yeah.
prominent in certain parts of Canada. But I
Yep.
mean, like, I am just floored to hear how many misdiagnoses you went through,
And I
and then
was I was fortunate. I was
how many
fortunate.
doctors you had, and you were the
Well,
ano- you
no. Yeah, had and have. I still have a team of doctors. I still have I still have a neurologist because that's when people get their usual exam every year. Like I'm just going to get my exam. My exam every year includes an MRI of my brain. I have to get my brain looked at every year, and it's not fun because
wow,
you're going in that MRI machine, which
with
I
the
tell
radiation,
people
yeah,
I've told people I utilize it as nap time, and they don't understand how's this girl falling asleep and because it's loud. But
yeah,
I tell
yeah,
folks I'm a single mom, and you take sleep where you get it. So they give you these big earphones anyway, these little cups you put over your ears, and you can't move your head. You have to close your eyes
guys,
because if
yes,
you have your eyes open and blink once, you could throw the whole machine off.
wow,
So I'm like, I might as well just fall asleep. And luckily I've gone to places where they play music through the machine. So as you're in there, they're asking you, what do you want to hear today? Because you're going to be in here for like an hour and a half.
It's that long.
Well, I get an MRI of my brain and spine.
Spine
So
because it went in the spinal fluid, right?
yeah. And it's funny because when, they did a MRI of my spine, they found out that I have what's called a syrinx in my spine. And so you're born with it. It's like a little tiny thing in your spine, but you don't know that unless you're getting an MRI of your spine. So I now know things about me that I never knew
Before.
in my life. I also have a neuro-ophthalmologist. So some people have like an ophthalmologist, an optometrist.
Right.
I have a neuro-ophthalmologist because there's so much they can see through the eye that's connected to the brain. So I have a neuro-ophthalmologist. I forgot about him.
Well,
So
I'm
he
learning.
was,
I'm learning. You're teaching. You're teaching not just me tonight. You're teaching us tonight. And
yes,
so, like, how can one, like, what do you need to do? Because, okay, so you went for this walk. So for
yes.
those joining us live and on the replay, we're talking about Lyme disease. It's Lyme Disease Month. It's actually the end of the month, but you can never stop advocating, no matter what month it is. And Serena has shared her story. Going for a walk in a beautiful nature walk, and got a
Yeah,
tick, and
yep,
did not know that, one, she got bitten by a tick, and the tick is
yep.
so small. I think they say it's like a ladybug. It's almost smaller than a ladybug. I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember the
and
size.
mine was smaller than that, but some ticks are microscopic. Some of them you
Wow.
cannot see. And those are the scarier ones because they could be on your body and you don't know it.
Yeah, and I know
You
I was
know.
reading about, as I was, because I know another person who has Lyme disease.
Hmm.
And so I've been always curious, because I remember she was saying, because she has complications, some of the complications you have when it
Yeah.
comes to Lyme disease. So have you gotten some advice? And now that you're an advocate and teaching people about Lyme disease, what should one do? Like, if we
Hmm.
go for these walks, because it's the pandemic, everybody's going on walks now. We're going on these
Yes.
nature walks.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, in Canada, I know they say, like, BC, Manitoba, certain parts of it's more prevalent.
Yeah.
In the US, I know it's in different places. But what should you do after you come back from these beautiful nature walks
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that can
Because
end
it's
up
just
not being beautiful?
it's so beautiful until you get bitten by a tick. So
Oh my God.
so I tell people the one thing you can do, and I know it's kind of hard when it gets hot outside, but wear light colors and wear long sleeve dry fit clothes. So what is dry fit for those who don't know what that is? It's a material that wicks the sweat off of you. So it keeps your body cool.
Hmm.
So you could wear long sleeves and may not be so bothered that it's summertime and I'm wearing long sleeves because it's dry fit. So it helps wick the sweat off your body. And if you wear a really light color
Hmm.
or even white, you'll be able to see anything that
Right.
lands on you. And same with your pants. So I used to run with black running pants. You can't see anything if something lands on those running pants. So maybe like a light gray or light color. You want your socks, basically, long story short, from head to toe, you want to wear light colors. That
Right.
will help. Another thing too is for those who just might be taking a walk and they don't have the dry fit and all that stuff, and I'm just taking a walk. You want to wear some sort of bug repellent. Now, I can't do bug spray like the off and like those brands with all the chemicals and toxins in them, because that's
Hmm.
a whole other conversation we could talk about, or toxins and chemicals and what it does
Right.
to the average body, let alone someone who's like me, immunocompromised,
Right.
where my immune system is already in flux and now we got these chemicals and toxins.
Right.
So there are natural ways that you can repel bugs with essential oils, for example.
Okay.
There's different, there's different scents. You have, I know, tea tree oil, lemongrass,
Okay.
peppermint, and then they have blends. So if you just type in like essential oil, bug repellent, stuff will just come up. And you want to make
Okay.
sure you get the therapeutic grade. Now, the therapeutic grade has been vetted through various systems. It doesn't have fillers in them because some of these essential oils that are off brand, for example,
Okay.
have fillers in them. So they're not pure. So you want to make sure you get like pure grade essential oil. And you can spray that. Now you smell good, but at the same time, you don't smell good to the bugs. So they're
Right.
staying far away from you. I mean, even mosquitoes don't want to come next to me. So
I was just
that's
about to
great.
ask you about, is it good for mosquitoes? Because I want that bad boy
Yes,
for some mosquitoes. Let me
yes.
tell you, they love
And
me.
I sprayed on myself. I sprayed on my child, and because kids are out there, and I mean, it's unfortunate, but they have the highest numbers of
Hmm.
Lyme disease are our children. Um,
Really?
Yeah, because they're out there playing in the grass, climbing trees, in parks. They're not thinking, oh, let me be careful and not get like bitten by a tick. And then some of them are so tiny. I mean, some of them are like 4 and 5 years old getting Lyme disease,
Hmm. Hmm.
but they get bitten because they're just outdoors being a child. They're being a kid at heart,
Yeah.
So I tell parents to do tick checks on their kids. So when they come in or ask if they're at an aftercare or a school,
Right.
check those kids to make sure they're not coming in with anything on them. And if they do, you want to try to remove it with a tweezer. If you have tweezers, and you want to make sure you get everything out, including like, what they're biting you, of course, but sometimes they leave like the legs might still be in there,
Right.
or so you want to do tick checks on your kids. And the second highest rate are people who are 50 and up because a lot of them are retiring. So a lot of them
Right.
are out in nature. They're taking their leisure walks. They're living their best lives. They're retired. They've worked there 20, 25 years. Let me lay in the grass. And they're getting ticks. They're getting bitten by ticks. So those are just some ways to help you. So you're still being able to enjoy life, but also trying to prevent, being bitten by a tick.
Yep. And so Joan is asking again if you could list, can you list the oils that one
Yes.
could use?
Yeah, there's a few. So the essential oils, there's like peppermint oil, tea tree oil, which is also called melaleuca.
Hmm.
There's also like a lemongrass um, essential oil. But if you literally Google like essential oil bug repellent, you'll see like they have the blends. And so, some companies have blended all of the essential oils you need, and they come in a bottle. And then, some
Right.
people they have like roll-ons. You could just roll it on your body.
Right.
Some have like the little sprays. You could spray it on you. So that's just one way. And they have other great health benefits and properties as well. Especially peppermint oil. It could really help with tons of things. So at the same time, like I love how I smell, but to know these
I
bugs
love
are
how you
hating
say that.
me, I love it. I'm like, good, stay as far away from me and my child as possible. Okay,
Come on
please,
now.
please. We've gone through enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know the thing too with Lyme disease, as I read up on it. I mean, I love nature, but I've
Hmm.
been going out walking more, and I look in the woods and I go like, ugh. And I think I remember you and I remember my other friend. And I
Yeah.
know they've said that when you come home, you check yourself, but shower
Hmm.
within 2 hours.
Yes.
2 hours of getting home, you shower and you check your body,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. You
So,
check your
and
body as soon as you get home, and then, like you said, you get in that shower and wash down.
yeah.
Yep.
And so, and the tweezers is important if you notice the thing. And you need to look up what a tick looks like, because you may it
Yes.
because it sometimes I think it kind of reminds me similar to like a bed bug, but it's smaller.
Yeah, and
But
some
it's
look like
red.
spiders because
Yes.
it's the black-legged ticks in particular that carry the Borrelia bacteria. Now that's just in the United States, Canada, and Europe and other countries. Now, when you go to Africa, that's a whole different story. Their ticks look completely different. So their ticks are soft. Our ticks are hard, and their
Mm,
ticks come from underground. So we're not dealing with bushes and trees now. We're talking, you could just be in certain parts of Africa, they're walking, you don't have your shoes on, you're walking barefoot.
to
And now
come.
you have these ticks coming from underground. And
Oh.
out there, it's not called Lyme disease, it's called tick-borne relapsing fever. And
Mm,
unfortunately, the misdiagnosis is mainly predominantly in West Africa is malaria because some of our Lyme disease symptoms look like malaria. And actually, I
interesting.
have a co-infection. That's a whole other thing these ticks carry. They
Ooh,
carry a host of co-infections. It's like the friends of Borrelia. So I have also had a host of co-infections on top of Lyme disease. So theirs looks like malaria, and that's, in West Africa that's very prevalent.
Yes, it
But they're
is.
saying they're doing actually more studies out there to see how many actually have malaria versus the tick-borne relapsing fever, and they're starting to find out that more and more people have it. And again, unfortunately, in Africa, same as anywhere else, the children are getting it the most
Hmm.
because they're out there living their best lives
Nice.
playing, you
Enjoying life.
know,
Yeah.
enjoying life like you should as a child. So that's the one area of the world where the ticks look different. They come from a different place,
Right.
and they present, some of the same symptoms, because some of my symptoms also look like malaria. Because one doctor asked me, have you traveled out of the country recently? I'm like, no, I'm too sick to go anywhere. I have not traveled anywhere where I'll get malaria. But some of my symptoms mimic malaria. So,
Sorry to interrupt you. This
no,
piece
it's
here, like,
okay.
and Sarah said it interesting about the disease mimicking misdiagnosed as malaria in Africa, because I think of some of my friends in Ghana and stuff like that who've had malaria several times, and I wonder
Yeah,
if it may not be malaria, and I wonder if they start tracing back, are they having any other symptoms and stuff like that? Because
yeah.
the thing with Lyme disease is if you catch it early, you're good.
You're good.
Well, for
Yeah,
the most part. But if you
yeah,
don't catch it early, it starts compromising your immune system. And that's what
yeah,
happened with you. It just kept metastasizing in your body and causing
yes.
more and more problems. And of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
you ended up being one of the, as they say, one in one how many? You were the one in the one how many
Yeah,
that,
it was 30% of us that
wow.
that don't get that bullseye rash. So there's a lot of people that get bit by, bugs, and there's no bullseye. And I'm thinking now, of course, with the United States, everything is understated. So I think it
Yeah.
might be more than 30%. And the other thing too, people ask me, how do you get tested for Lyme? So that's also tricky because Lyme bacteria can hide anywhere in your body, even in your brain. The bacteria is called spirochetes, and they can hide in your brain, they can hide in your muscles. So it doesn't have to necessarily show up in your bloodstream. So you can have what's called a false negative test. And almost 60% of the people here in the United States get a false negative because it's coming up negative, but they have all the classic symptoms of Lyme disease. Luckily, mine, when my doctor said, I'm testing you for Lyme, I came up highly positive. So that it was in my blood. But some people, they're like, oh, you don't have Lyme because you're negative. Well, a lot of people are still testing negative years later, but they have Lyme.
And so it's almost like, for lack of a better comparison, it's like COVID. Some people get
Hmm.
false positives and they have thing they're walking around, or they may be carriers and they're walking around, and
Yep.
you just don't know because it has so many different symptoms to it. And the fact
Yeah.
is, the rash didn't show up for you. It
No,
was like a
at
total
all.
miss. And
Never
so
showed
really
up.
and truly, we have to be very mindful and careful that when we're going outside and we're going for these beautiful walks
Hmm.
and enjoying nature as we should,
Yeah.
that we need to just check ourselves. And it's another reminder that, when you come to the walk, separate your clothes, because the worst thing you want to do, because ticks live on blood. They
Yes.
live on blood,
Yeah.
right?
And there's certain things too. And also check your pets because your dogs are out there,
Mm.
and some dogs have Lyme disease, which is just heartbreaking. But your dogs are out there playing, what they're supposed to be doing, and
Oh,
they come in the house. And if you see like your dog coming back in the house and he's scratching himself,
check
go
him.
look at exactly where he's scratching. And some owners have found multiple ticks on their dogs, not just one, but multiple, and then they automatically take them to the veterinarian. But, a lot of animals, dogs and deer, because if you're out in the woods, deer carry the ticks too. And I know I was looking up Canada,
Wow.
and Canada has, I think it's called the white-tailed deer, and they said they are very prevalent to carry the ticks that carry the Borrelia bacteria in
Now
the
that is
woods or
so,
wherever. Yeah.
and it's so
So that.
interesting. And I'm saying, like, if you're here, if you're in the US, like the Mayo Clinic has a lot of great information on Lyme disease. In
Yes.
Canada, there is
Hmm.
the government of Canada really has some great information. They even have a little video that shows you what a tick looks like And so you really need to go and do your research. And and I'm being mindful of your time because I'm also thinking of your beautiful son.
Oh, I know we're good. We're almost to the last day of school, girl. We are
Almost to the
good.
last day. Hurrah! Hurrah! He
23,
made it.
23
He made
days,
it.
including today. Okay, so
He made
we're
it. He
good.
made it.
We made it. Okay, so don't be. I
Listen.
got time. It's
Um, how
a
was
whole other
but
conversation.
how are you dealing with Lyme disease, the complications from it,
Yes.
and COVID now?
Oh gosh. So yeah. So COVID. So here we
Hold on,
go.
hold on, Serena. My girl Joan says, I'm staying on the tracks for my exercise,
There you
not
go,
the
Joan.
trails. This is scary listening to Serena's journey. Yep.
Yes.
And you're in your 70s, so you better stay on the tracks.
Stay on the tracks because I was literally reading, during these times of COVID, the big debate is, do people with Lyme disease get this COVID vaccine? What
Ooh,
is it going to do to us? Because, for example, I can't get a flu shot. The flu shot dismantles me. It just destroys me. And so now we're talking a vaccine here. Okay, that
wow. And
I
which is actually like the flu shot because you're going to need boosters for it. It's
you're
not
going to
the
need
regular.
boosters.
Yeah.
It's more than the flu shot. So I've been on different blogs just to see how people are doing, and there's actually lots of organizations here. There's one called the Global Lyme Alliance,
Okay.
and they do stats globally. They're in tune. They're on the ground, like talking to doctors, patients, folks like me. So they actually have a database where there's over 14,000 of us in their database called My Lyme Data. And they put out a survey about COVID. If you got the vaccine, we want to know how you're doing, and 1,200 responded, which was a good amount of people. I think they just put it out because the vaccine just came out January.
Right.
So, everything is so new, just came out. It's not like it's been out for years, only
Yeah.
1,200 responded.
Yeah.
I'd be a little concerned. But so out of the 1,200, the crazy part that I was reading, I just read it today, where is according to like the general population when it came to side effects, some people that had Lyme disease had lower side effects. But the issue is there was a question because I got the questionnaire, but I didn't get the vaccine, so I can't answer it. There was a question asking, did your Lyme symptoms flare up? And with
Mm,
one vaccine, 28% said yes, and the other vaccine, 25% said yes. And that's still a good amount of people that had flare ups. And I know there were open ended questions. Those are the answers I really want to know is how are people feeling? What were those flare ups? So then I went to like another website of another Lyme literate doctor. His name is Dr. Daniel Cameron. He's pretty renowned in the Lyme world, and he had one blog about COVID, and everybody's been posting how they've been doing with the vaccine, or just how they've been doing with COVID,
right.
off of that one blog post. And I have been reading it's like up to 200 comments now, and people who have battled COVID and Lyme, and their doctors didn't know if they had COVID or if this is just Lyme or what is this, until they tested. Thank goodness their test came up positive for COVID. But, one guy said he's still dealing with symptoms several months later. So it flared his Lyme symptoms. He's what you call a COVID long hauler, because he has other
Yeah.
symptoms that he never had that he's still experiencing. So we have to be extra careful. I tell people all the time. I actually did a vlog about it because if one more person asked me, when are you getting vaccinated, Serena? I was going to go off. So,
Yeah.
so let me
Yeah.
put out a gentle vlog. It's very gentle that we're already, before the pandemic, we were dealing with our own pandemic of
Mm-hmm.
Lyme disease.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to put it. Now we got COVID. So now we got this vaccine. And then in the middle of all of this, they're now deciding to they're testing out a Lyme disease vaccine. There used to be a vaccine for Lyme disease many years ago. So in the midst of all this, they're like, well, let's try and put this back out on the market too. I'm like, wait a minute. Can we just get through the pandemic?
Can
Okay,
we slow a roll? Yeah, we need to
can
slow
we
a roll.
slow our roll? And what's going to be now in this vaccine? You know, because there was a reason why the last one was pulled off the shelves. So there is a lot of great debate. And the best advice I heard, the doctors who I highly respect are the neutral doctors, where they say every person that has Lyme disease is very unique. It doesn't manifest in your body the same as the next person. And this is where you really have to have a conversation with your medical team, your doctors, and really go through how you're feeling, all your symptoms, go through the vaccines. Because even though people are saying this, it's the same,
Hmm.
if you really break down the ingredients of those vaccines, so a couple of, you know, they're different, you
They
know,
are.
so
They are.
they are different. Like one has potassium, you know, in it. The other one doesn't, for example. Because you know, I'm a health and wellness coach, so I went and pulled off every single ingredient and did research.
You did a deep dive, Serena. You did
I
a
was like, I
deep
need to
dive.
see what this is, and then, and
Yeah.
now, of course, Johnson and Johnson is kind of off the market, on the market. I don't know what's happening with them,
Yeah.
but and then there's other vaccines on the horizon, but we are already immunocompromised. We have to be extra careful. So as they're opening up states and countries, a
You
lot
have
of
to
us
be
are low
extra,
key.
extra careful.
We're still
Yes, you
very
have to
low
be.
key. I'm not trying to go out to the barbecues. I'm not trying to go out to the public pool.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to do all that. And plus, on top of that, I have a 9-year-old to worry about who cannot be vaccinated. So
Right.
even if I was in my best health, my child can't get vaccinated. So we have some of our symptoms, like I was saying, do mimic COVID. And for example, last March, I had a little bit of a scare. I was telling Dr. Vibe this on his show last year. And he got very concerned because it was only 2 months after. And I said I had to go to the emergency room because my breathing became a bit erratic. And usually I know how to control it, but I said I have to go. So I didn't actually want to go to the ER. So let me just go to urgent care and probably just get like a breathing treatment and be sent home. Urgent care stopped me right at the front door and was like, "Oh, you have shortness of breath? We can't see you.
Wow.
You have COVID." I said, "Excuse me, I've had this symptom since October 2012." Okay, so I was like, "I think I'm just having a flare up. There's a lot of stress." I said, "My kid got sent home from school. I'm still at work. Um, People at my old job act like they can care less that I'm still working and my child's like
Right.
bouncing from house to house." I was like, so when that happens, stress is already an overload on your immune system. So with
Hmm.
people who have Lyme disease, it just takes us over. It just takes us over the ledge. So I was over the ledge and they turned me away. So then I called my doctor's office, who was actually open, and they said, "Serena, just go to the emergency room." And
Right.
that was a whole experience in itself because we're talking last March 2020 when
Wow.
COVID was just hitting the States and Canada. So they had their check-in for the ER outside in the parking lot, outside. So I checked in outside. I'm like, I got shortness of breath. It's cold out here, and I got to check in
Chicken outside.
outside. And this is before they were doing, because it was so new. They weren't even doing temperature checks yet. It
Right.
was so the security guard takes your name, takes the symptoms you have, then they walk in the building, check in with the folks in the building, came back out, and they said, "Okay, ma'am, you can go to this side of the ER." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" They said, "Well, that side is if you have COVID." So it was a whole, they actually divided.
Divided
And
the.
yeah, and it was actually a tent. They even have a room, it was a tent for those who had COVID. I said, "Well, it's a tent outside. Is it heated? I mean, it's cold out here. It's March, you know." So I was in the ER for several hours. I got everything looked at, lungs, chest, you name it. They gave me the breathing treatment I needed. They found out I was dehydrated. They asked me about stress. And as soon as they asked me that, my blood pressure level shot up.
Went up.
Just went
All the way up. All the way up.
all the way up. And I said, all I want to do is get home to my son. I was like, I had to drop him off because they wouldn't allow me to bring him. That was the other thing now. Places like ERs and
Yeah.
even certain
Yeah.
doctors' offices, unless you are a caregiver, they will not allow you to bring your child with you. I'm a single mother, so what am I
So
supposed to
let's
do?
do. Yeah.
So
You have to
luckily, I
find
have a
somebody.
friend or two where they're pretty isolated. They're very safe, and I take
Mhm.
him to them. I have friends in the area where they got my back. They said, just drop Jordan off and just, let us know your family's information in case we have to let them know what's happening. And, luckily I was back home by midnight, but it was all the stress. But at that time, I still couldn't get COVID tested because they didn't have enough tests for COVID. It was amazing. I said, you don't have enough tests. They said, no, you have to have all the symptoms in order for you in order for us to test you. I said, okay, well, what if I just have one symptom and I have COVID? So it's been a
It could really,
nightmare.
but it really talks to the anomaly that could have happened, at how many people were probably walking around with COVID, didn't get
Yep.
tested and stuff like that.
Because yep, because they have
Serena,
one symptom or two symptoms. And then the
yeah,
other thing too is the long haulers,
yeah,
the COVID long haulers.
mm-hmm,
The one thing I will say, and my heart goes out to anyone who's had COVID, the COVID long haulers. But the one thing the long haulers that are doing for the Lyme community is bringing attention to those like us, because some people don't believe that there is such thing called chronic Lyme or post Lyme syndrome, which is what I'm going through.
and I've
So
read about that, yeah, which is
yeah,
really weird, with
yeah,
so
and
many
they
people
never
talking
believe
about it.
this. They're like, oh no, you're past Lyme, you have something else. No, I didn't have any of this before Lyme. This is still like the residual or just the symptoms still acting up. But now, because of the COVID long haulers, there's now more research that's happening, for the Lyme community, for
Right.
us folks who are like me, where this September will be 9 years I was bitten, and I still have about five symptoms, and I have the top three. I told, I was like, God, if you get rid of these top three, I'm good. Okay.
9 years, Serena.
It's been
That's a
nine
long
years.
time,
And
hun.
I tell folks because my son was one when I was bitten. That's how I can also keep track. He had just
Right,
turned one, and a
right,
month after he turned one, I got bitten.
right.
So it has been something else. And the ones who have Lyme or anything, it could be fibromyalgia, lupus, and they get COVID, it's like your immune system is just
Yeah.
imploding. It is just completely devastating. So I'm on the neutral ground with the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Just go out there, talk to your doctor first
Yes,
to see what is best for you at this moment.
right.
It might not be best for you right now to get a vaccine. You may have to wait a few months, build
Yeah,
up your immune system. And then some may say go and try it, but talk to a neutral medical professional, someone who will
no,
like, not blatantly say no, don't get it, or
right.
yes, you must get it. You just want to make sure you talk to the right people, the right soundboard,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
But yeah,
I
it
love,
is really a lot.
I am so grateful that, we were able to get this interview in here, even if it was the last day of Lyme
And
Disease
it's
Awareness
funny.
Month.
This happened in September with us. We were talking about ovarian cancer. Our
Yes.
interview, I think, was the last day of Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. I said, Nicole is coming in. We're going to
We're
close it
com-
out again together. And I
we're gonna come
appreciate
in
that.
strong. We're gonna come in strong because, sometimes we forget about it. We
Yes.
get the awareness, and sometimes, a lot happens at the beginning of the month. And I find people
Yeah.
tail off at the end of a month when
Yep.
it's a particular month thing. So we're
Yep.
ending off mental health month. With
Yep.
talking about Lyme disease. It's Lyme Disease Month. It is
Yes.
Autism Awareness Month,
Yeah.
and there
It's
are
a lot.
probably some
Yeah.
other things in this
Yeah.
month that,
Yeah.
and it was Mother's Day,
Oh,
and Lord, a lot of stuff. But Serena, I am just so grateful you came on here tonight. You shared so much
oh, thank
information.
you.
Thank you for being so transparent with your story,
Thank you. I
and
appreciate it.
just really taking us to the next level of even thinking as we go outside. If you joined us live and on the replay, you go outside there, you be careful and wear your light clothing and get your insect repellent and
Yep.
check yourself, and take a shower within 2 hours and put those clothes aside. And
Yep.
Sarah right here in Ottawa says, thanks for sharing your journey and so much great information. Yes, it
Oh,
was,
thank
Sarah.
you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And Serena is one of the avid Victory Speaks fans. I love you dearly. Like,
Oh, I love you too,
you're
dear.
tuning
I
in all
love
the way
it.
from Washington. I am
Your
so humbled
shows
by you.
feed me. Like you said, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And you had I think it was a therapist on
Dr.
talking
Nakesa?
about it was, oh yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of doctors on here. One was
Yeah.
a social worker.
Oh,
Um,
Roxanne Francis, probably.
yes.
The
and she was talking
psychotherapist.
about mental health and
Oh, Donna.
that's
So you know who that was? That was
yes.
Donna Alexander. And guess what?
Okay.
She's coming back on Wednesday. She's
Her
going to be here on
show.
Wednesday, and we're going to be talking about men's mental health, and we're going to bring a
Oh,
couple
please,
other people.
please do, please do.
Yeah,
But
Donna,
it
Donna.
hit
Yeah,
right on time because we were going into Lyme Disease Awareness Month, and like you were talking about the whole mental health piece.
hmm
There are some people, with Lyme disease. That's the other thing. Okay, now I've gotten through Lyme, but I am depressed. I am this because a lot of us we lose friends in this.
yeah.
I have lost friends. Not they're still here on the planet, but they didn't want to be bothered with me anymore. My situation was too much for them,
Too
as one person
complicated.
said,
They can't deal with it. Yeah,
and they
and
can't deal
it's
with it. And it's
oh,
a lot. So you're now getting cut off by people who you loved and been with for years. You're depressed that you have this like complex
yeah,
illness,
yeah.
and it really does take a toll on your mental health. So I had to do a whole regimen. I was already a prayer warrior and a prayerful person, but we're talking day and night on the
Gone up
floor,
another
face
notch.
down, praying. I mean, just, reaching out to my pastors. God bless them, Ebenezer AME, Fort Washington, Maryland. They prayed for me. And when I finally made it back to church, because one symptom I had too was I had anxiety. It was like an anxiety disorder suddenly. I couldn't even go to church because my body would just fall apart around more than 5, 10 people, let alone 1,000. So when I finally walked back through those doors, they prayed for me, hugged me.
That was
I
a
mean,
victory. That's a victory moment, Serena.
I felt like doing a
That's a
victory.
victory
If I could have
moment.
ran, I would have did a victory lap around that church. But I was like, I can't run, y'all. But when I am able to run, I'm doing a couple of victory laps around here. But it's been a lot. And then, of course, another thing is my child. He
Yeah,
went through a lot because he was young. But as he
yeah.
got older, he realized my mom is not the same like the other moms. She
hmm
can't be out
hmm
on the soccer field like the other parents. Or, I finally got back in the pool and it was because of Jordan. He got me
Right.
back in the pool because he was taking swim lessons and they said that'll be good for your respiratory system.
System.
So if it wasn't for my child, I wouldn't have gotten back in the pool, but he's now more aware
hmm
that there are parents. The biggest question is why, mommy? Why you? Why
Yeah.
anyone? And I told him, I really wish I could answer that question, hon. I just
It's a
can't.
tough
But
question.
it takes a toll on these kids because he was very fearful during this pandemic, mainly.
hmm
That if my mom gets COVID, she can check out of here. And he has
Yeah.
told me a few times he was scared from my life, not even his own, but from my
Oh.
life. And then you're losing, like we were losing people left
hmm
and right, it seemed like, not even to COVID, but just other things.
Just life was happening. I'm
And
sending
he
Jordan
just,
a big. I'm sending Jordan a
please
big hug
do.
right now. I'm sending
Our
him a big
children,
hug.
our children need it because they go through a lot too when their
Yeah.
parents are sick. Especially when you're the lone ranger like me, and
Mhm.
you're a single parent. And I said, I told him I've been praying to God. I said, I got to hang in there. I got a child to raise, and I want to see him. I want to be like my grandmother when I grow up. I want to be 96
Come
when I
on
check.
now.
And
Come on now.
She only checked out of here. I really believe because of isolation of the pandemic. I really think that's the only reason why she passed away.
Wow.
Because she was fine. She was fine, but being locked, in your apartment for 4 whole months and you can't see anybody,
Yeah. It's a
it
lot.
really took a toll on
And some
her.
people
But
haven't left their houses. I was watching a story. They have
yes,
not left the houses since the
there,
pandemic. People are just bringing
nope,
them the groceries they're getting, and some of the seniors are just locked in. They haven't
yeah,
gone for a walk, and it's not
yep,
healthy,
it's not
But
healthy.
even if it's around the block, you gotta get out. Even if it's
Yeah,
around the block, wear your
yeah,
mask
yep,
up,
yeah,
and if and as we wind down the show, if you know someone who is isolated,
yep.
pay attention to them, go visit, do a phone call, find ways to
Mm-hmm.
engage them, because loneliness
Yes,
is, I can't say the word, it's a bad, really bad word.
yeah.
Loneliness is a son of a gun.
And people
And
can look fine on the
yeah,
outside because people look at me and say, "Oh, you look great, Serena. You look
yeah,
fine." Not knowing like I'm having a dizzy spell, I'm
yeah.
short of breath, my leg is like about to go out. But they go based off of look, and the same thing with just checking in on people. You can look at them on Zoom and they look fine, but they could really be crumbling
And
on the
totally
inside
going
from this
through.
pandemic.
And you said, that same instinct that we check for, like if that still small voice is speaking to us, let that instinct, if somebody comes to mind, check in on them, even
Yes.
send them sometimes, even if you think they're looking fine, surprise them with a meal, surprise them with a
Yes. Yes.
whatever it is, a gift card. Just do something special for those
Yeah.
that you haven't checked in on. I know, like, life is getting hectic in some areas, and we're all adjusting, but we
Mm-hmm.
just have to take that time, even if it's once a month. You don't have to do it every week. You don't have to
Yep.
do it every day.
Yep.
Maybe every week would be good, every 2 weeks. But do what's best for you. But check in on others as you want to be checked in on. And
Yes.
so, like,
So
you know,
important.
Serena, I appreciate you coming on here talking
Oh,
about Lyme
thank
disease,
you. Thank
and
you.
and sharing your story. And make sure and follow her. And her website is divinewryte.com, and Divine Wryte at Instagram and Twitter. You can follow her, learn all about not just Lyme disease, because she's an advocate. She's a health advocate. And I tell you, there's some guests you just have to have back more than once, because they are so filled with a lot of knowledge. And even before we go tonight, I just want to tell people thank you for tuning in. And the show is on Mondays and Wednesdays from at 8 o'clock. And on Wednesday of this week, I'm going to literally have Donna Alexander from Sapasi at CAMH. We're going to be talking about mental health and wellness. We are going to be also having Paul Bailey from the Black Health Alliance. We may have one more guest. I'm just waiting on them. Hopefully, I can get that guest on here on that show as well. But we're going to be talking about men and their mental health and wellness, because we love to talk about women, but we don't talk about the men and their mental health. And as we're going into June and Father's Day, we really need to think about the men and the young boys in our families. Tuesday, I'm going to be on Clubhouse for a short bit with Coach Danny Stone. Thursday, the Black Content Creators on Clubhouse at 12:15 with Shirley Joseph. And on Fridays, Love More, Speak Up and Empower.
Yay.
And we have really great conversations. And if you don't know where to find me, please tune in. And you can check out this show again if you missed any of it on Victory Speak 7 on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. And before we go tonight, I know you're seeing my setup. I got on my orange shirt. Today is Orange Shirt Day, and in Canada. And one of the reasons it's Orange Shirt Day is that we are, paying honor to the 215 children and many more that were lost through the residential school system here in Canada. They found 215 children buried. And we don't know how long ago it was. It was a long time ago. We're going to get the year. And it's a loss that many of us feel in our hearts, and we're hurting. The Anishinaabe nation flag will be flown at half mast from this morning to June 9th. And it's actually for 215 hours until 10 a.m. on June 9th. The flag is being flown in front of the Indian Residential School Monument located at the Anishinaabe Nation head office in Nipissing First Nation. And so even tonight, many of us put teddy bears, and you see my teddy bears behind me here. And we put teddy bears. They said to us, put a teddy bear and put a light on your porch in memory of those that we loved and lost. And our hearts go out. It is a painful time, and the truth will come out, and more will be revealed as time goes by. I also want to encourage you, if you're on my Facebook page, and if you're not, and I will put it up again on my Instagram and on my Twitter. There's a beautiful mom in our community here in Toronto, Erica Edwards, and she suddenly, unexpectedly lost her son, Kai. And Kai was just about 18 years old, and she was just about to put his life insurance in place. And she even says, get these things in order. And he transitioned 9 days before she actually got things in place. And so right now there's a GoFundMe page as she raised funds to lay her beloved son to rest. And so, on the Victory Speak, so we only just don't speak victory for ourselves. We want to speak for others. Victory Speaks is here as an advocate. Many of you know me as an advocate in my community, and if there's a way that there's advocacy that can be done here and through this show, by bringing on guests that speak to different topics that inspire you to live a victorious lifestyle and to bring your issues to light, This is why I'm here. And so as we go tonight, I just want you to hug someone tighter, tell someone you love them, make sure to have an inspired conversation. Serena, thank you so much
Oh, thank
for being on
you.
the show tonight. I love
God bless
you.
you. I
Oh,
love you
yes.
too.
From
And
the
to my
top of my head
Lyme,
to the
yes.
sole of my toes. I love you.
Oh, and I'm so thankful for how we connected. Shout out to Dr. Vibe for that
Yes.
one. And
Yes.
just a divine connection at the right time. And I just thank God for the people that He has brought into my life. You know, you lose some, but they say you go through a season of pruning.
Yes.
And, in the end, you will flourish. And He always has the right people surrounding you. So
Yeah.
thank you, Nicole, and just all my Lyme disease warriors out there. Just hang in there, hang
Hang
tough.
in there.
We're going to get through this. We will.
Keep hope alive. Thank you, everyone. Good night. And we want you to, live your best life and live it now.
Yes.
And I'm going to roll out with this video.